this is your girl, Yanique Dacosta, and you are listening to GuildCast, a podcast from the Graphic Artists Guild.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.
Beats me with how late he stays up, but I'm up for another 3 to 4 hours doing more work, plus also doing the stuff that I really want to do. I'm working on a personal project. That's when I work on it, and often I look up after an hour. I'm like, oh wait, I didn't come up here to work on this. I came up to get these emails done and get this done and get this done.
GuildCast is brought to you in part by Graphic Arts Today. In this community episode, Guild board member Yanique interviews Guild BFF Ed in Member Connect with Yanique and Ed.
All right, so my name is Yanique Dacosta. I own a design firm that focuses on brand development and advertising for the real estate, health and wellness, and medical industries. I am also an internationally exhibited fine artist, so my artwork back here. Primarily focusing on abstract art as well as female form that speaks to body positivity and women empowerment. I also own an art studio, but I guess that's not as fun to talk about. So, bring up my good friend Ed.
I'm just Ed. I mean, my goodness. No, I'm Ed Shems. My business is called Ed, Fred, Ned, Illustration and Design. And it's just me. I have to explain that sometimes to people just to clarify when they email me and say, hi, can I please speak with Fred? This is a message for Ned. So I am an illustrator. I do web comics, I do comics, and I do commercial art. And I'm also a graphic designer. And I do storyboards for animation. So I try and cover a whole bunch of ground there. And I've been a freelancer for almost 30 years. I know it's crazy because I look like I'm only 15, but
exactly.
Yeah, right. So I've been in this for a long time. I've been a guild member for about 20 years at least, maybe more. So I've been around for a while, and I really like the whole idea of helping others. And so I'm really happy to be on this podcast so that we can kind of talk about how to be creative during a pandemic, right, Yanique? Is that what we're going to talk about? Or okay.
That is what we're going to talk about, because I know from firsthand experience, it, laugh out loud, can be really hard. It can be hard. It can be a real struggle at the time, adjusting to this new normal, right? Like, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. So I'm a single woman who lives alone. It's great in terms of like productivity and like having more time for yourselves and being able to like get through the to-do list. But the part where you get like all the energy and all like the creative aspects from is when you leave the house, right? Like the little things you see on your walk, the little people that you talk to who say something that like sparks something that like has you go through some like research hole that has you create this whole thing. They're not there anymore. And then I know, Ed, you were talking about like being home and homeschooling. Tell the people about your homeschooling.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you should say that you would go out to get creative things because, I work mostly in the children's industry, mostly like 90% of my work is for children's books and such. So I have a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old in the house. So I get so much information and I get so many ideas and I hear so much creativity in my own home. And sometimes I kind of want to leave so that I don't have to hear anything. So I can just kind of tune out for a little bit. But it's really helpful to have 2 really creative kids. And my son has a really strong sense of humor, like a very mature sense of humor. He must get that from me. And so it's really nice because I can bounce things off of him. And he'll literally analyze it to death. He'll kill an idea because he'll look at it from 27 different directions, and finally, in the end, he'll be like, "No, it's not funny."
Tell us the one that you were telling me yesterday. The specific one. Give that.
Oh, I forget what I was telling you yesterday. Can you remind me?
I was hoping you remember Tina because it was something specific and you were like, it was something that everybody liked and he didn't like it because he was like, the information didn't like them.
My wife and I showed him Almost Famous. Yeah. The movie Almost Famous, which is one of our favorite movies ever, most favorite movies ever.
I don't know it.
There's a good, oh God. So there's a, it's a mature themed movie. Just, about a rock and roll band with a reporter who's 15 years old, who's been tasked to travel with them and write an article for Rolling Stone. It's a phenomenal movie. And it was out 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I should have looked it up, but
20 years ago.
We were like,
2000.
Wow, thank you. So we've been talking it up to him for a while. So finally, we made him watch it with us a few nights ago. And at the end, we're like, right, and he's like, no. Why? Because he's like, stories need to have an A plot and a B plot, and the A plot needs to conclude and the B plot needs to conclude by the end. And if it's not, then it's not a full story. But we're like, but that was a full story, even though the B plot of the love story didn't end up happening. And that's what we love about it. So anyway, he did a great job of just kind of killing it. But at the same time, he's really helpful. It's really helpful to have someone built in who can kind of critique your work, and you can put aside anything you don't agree with and continue on.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.
So Yanique, if you can't go out and get the creativity, get the sparks, hear the words that kind of sit in your head and then make you create something, where are you getting it now during this pandemic?
All right, so it started off with those what are those things called, virtual happy hours, and like just hanging out with my friends. And sometimes there would be drinks, sometimes there wouldn't be, sometimes I would run out. Anyway, we wouldn't talk about work or anything. We would just like laugh and play games, right? And so that kind of gave me like a different kind of push and like reframed and refocused my mind. And then I would go for runs. I started going for runs like around June, like long runs. And so the long runs turned into like 3 miles and 5 miles and 8 miles, because my mind was just like relaxing, and I was just like watching all kinds of things around me, like what's happening? And then I would realize that I wouldn't realize that I ran past where I intended to run to, and then I was like, now I have to go back home. This is awkward. This is going to be interesting.
I'm going to turn around and walk back.
Yeah, and then there's also like the really random Google hole. So sometimes I'll like sit on my computer, and so like I'll call it my lunchtime, and like I'll just Google something like a word, birds, and then they'll come up with, and I'll click that, and I'll be like, oh, interesting. And either I'll read it or look at the picture or look at the video, and then I'll be like, well, here's another link related to that link, and I'll read that, and then after an hour, it's just like a random hole of just nothing.
So you go willingly and intentionally down the internet rabbit hole.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's straight because now I'm working on like a whole different series that has like a combination of like women and plants because of one of the holes one day, and even like right now, my bathroom decor has now changed because of one of these holes. So for me, it works. And being able to like arbitrarily FaceTime friends like Ed or like my mom definitely helps to like make me not feel so alone, to remember that time is still passing, so that it motivates me to keep going, because it can be so hard. It can be so hard. And initially, it was really just about me like making my list and like getting down my list to just get some momentum to go, because I was just like so out of it. Like I didn't want to do anything. I was like, I'm gonna sleep all day, and then and then I still was getting my mail, and it still had bills in it, so that wasn't really Yeah.
So that part.
I tried. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick question for you. Because you mentioned that you run outside, and like, I don't know if this is a thing with creatives or if this is probably just a personal preference, but do you prefer to run outside or on a treadmill? I don't know if you're not on a treadmill just because you're not at the gym, but which do you prefer?
I do prefer to run outside.
Me too. I don't like to just sit in one place. I like to see all the things like you were saying a while ago.
I don't mind running on the treadmill, right? But it has to be a treadmill facing a window so I can look out.
Yeah.
Because so the running part of it too, for me, when I look down and I'm like, gosh, I'm at 3 miles. I can keep going. So like all these little like measurements. So now I have a Fitbit, not because I bought it, because my friend bought it because I wasn't paying for that thing. And so like I can look at my watch and it tells me like how far I've gone, like what my heart rate is and like how many calories I burned. And it was like, okay, look at me, you know, with this little thing. Yeah. So,
and do you have a favorite? Do you have like I don't know if you're like into exercise like that or if you exercise, but do you have a preference of like inside versus outside or gym versus home?
Well, you know.
And do you think it's influenced by being a creative, your preference?
So I'm going to answer the last part. Yes, for sure. Being a creative, I would much rather create than go outside and run. But I had this great conversation. So I'm also the special guest coordinator for the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, and every year we have a big event, and we bring in all these special guests, and it's actually going on right now, October 2020. I don't know when this podcast is going to go out. And it's all month. Anyway, 3 years ago, we had Kazuo Kibuishi was one of our special guests. He's the creator of Avatar, and he's amazing. And in fact, I have it. Sorry, not Avatar. Did I say Amulet? I actually didn't plan on talking to him. I happen to have it right here, talking about him. And I had this really great conversation where he has very busy days and very stressful doing his work, and he finds different ways to relax. And some of them are playing video games after the kids go to bed or doing the dishes. And during that time, he can really relax, but also think. It's like an active time where he can think. And for me, there are 2 times when I can work on my creativity, whereas it might for Camille and Yanique, it might be while you guys are running or exercising. For me, when either right before I go to bed, as I'm lying there, I'm actually working out a sequence from a graphic novel, like I'm trying to get the dialogue just right and how to make it work. And the other time is when I'm showering. In the shower, I come up with so many great ideas, and I can't wait to get out of the shower, and then I run and I write them down, or I just go straight up to my office and I work on whatever page I'm working on. It's really, really helpful to just take yourself away and then just kind of go on autopilot, which again, I'm sure you do while you're running. Go on autopilot, and then things just kind of start to make sense, and you have a calm moment in your day to kind of work out problems that you have with something you're working on.
GuildCast is brought to you in part by Graphic Arts Today. In this community episode, Guild board member Yanique interviews Guild BFF Ed in Member Connect with Yanique and Ed.
It's funny that you said showers, right? Because showers are like my favorite part of the day normally. And so when I visit my mom's house, there's a lot of complaining about why I'm in the shower for so long. But when I'm in the shower, I almost feel like I forget everything. It's interesting that you come up with your best ideas in there. In the shower, I forget everything, and I'm just like, lather, 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 water, water, water. And like,
you're present in the moment.
Yeah, it's like 10 to 15 minutes will go by, and I'll be like, sometimes I have to set an alarm to get me out of the shower on time. Because like I'll be in the shower and I'll just be like, yeah, relaxing. And it just feels so good to just get clean. And then when I get out after a shower, normally I'm just like, all right, ready to go. What's next? Woo!
It's like hitting the reset button. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I take that long break or the reset button. Yeah.
Huh.
I think I'm like halfway in between that. Like I can definitely relate. Like when I used to have to drive a lot, like I used to think about specific like I know that I have to drive this long. Like I know that I'm gonna leave specific things for that time frame. I know I'm gonna have a long time to just not do anything. I did the same thing with the dishes. The shower is here. That's what I'm thinking. It's half and half. Because sometimes I'm in the shower and I get some really awesome ideas. I agree with you, Ed. I've always thought that I need to have a marker that I can just write on the tile in the bathroom. And then sometimes I'm just like, I'm here for the purpose of not doing anything on purpose. So I feel both.
Yeah, but you're also a singer, and where is there better acoustics than in the shower? So I can imagine you should just set up a tape recorder. A tape recorder, you know?
That's a good idea. No, that's a good idea. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I'm taking that.
That's right. But yeah, I think it's important for anyone. Well, I was just going to say, I think it's important for everyone to find their way to either reset or their way to really be able to think through whatever issues they're coming up with, they're having with their work, or to come up with new ideas. You find you can't do it if you're stressed out all day. You can't do it if you're like, you have deadlines. And in my case, then I have to go downstairs. I have to check to make sure the kids are doing their schoolwork. I have to make sure my daughter is finding the right links. And then I have to go make dinner. And then it's bedtime. And then, so during that time, I'm running around a little too much. So I have to find those moments to calm down. And Camille, I also like to take drives and I do a lot of thinking during drives, and I love it when no one comes with me. I mean, I love my family, but when they don't come with me, I'm like, oh, good, I can actually work out some problems while I'm driving.
No, you're right. I agree, because when you're in the car, then it's the same thing where it's still like there's a distraction. When you're by yourself, then it's like you don't have a choice but to be by yourself, and then unless you turn the radio on, you're really by yourself.
Well, no. Sometimes if I'm going for a long drive, I do it without the radio, just for peace and quiet. But Ed, you said something earlier in terms of like resetting, and I don't think this is absolute right, but something that works and helps me is a certain level of organization. So my list, it helps me to know everything I have to do and then to manage my time for those things, so I'm not like stressed about everything, like you said. Like, if I just do things haphazardly or do every little ad hoc email, text message thing that comes at me, I will become very frustrated. And I have my share of anxiety problems. Okay, I don't need to be frustrated. So writing it on my list works for me too, and it definitely helps me to know how much time I can allot to each activity to be my best creative self.
I think that's one thing that's always impressed me about you, how organized you are and how business-like. Yeah, efficient is actually the best word there. But you're so business-like about the business of art. You've recognized what a lot of people don't, which is that this is a business and you have to treat it like a business. Mm-hmm. You have to get from A to Z done per day or within a certain amount of time. And I've always been impressed that you're so good at that, because I'm horrible.
Agreed. I agree.
I find myself distracted by every message that comes in. I'm definitely distracted by my kids because they're constantly coming upstairs to my office. And I see your lists. I see you crossing things off your list. In fact, I was talking with
to cross it off.
I was talking with Shelley Paroline yesterday. She had a whole list of things, and then she got really upset. And I said, what's wrong? She's like, I just finished something that I forgot to put on my list, and I don't get to cross it off. So I said, put it on your list and cross it off.
And then cross it out.
Yeah, it's smart.
Yep.
It's smart.
I'm definitely doing it.
I need to start a list, and the first thing on the list is start a list. And I just can't get to that point yet. But at the same time, I get my stuff done. I'm still getting it done, but I tend to work all hours. The kids go to bed and then I'm up for another 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Well, not the kids. My son sometimes beats me with how late he stays up, but I'm up for another 3 to 4 hours doing more work, plus also doing the stuff that I really want to do. I'm working on a personal project. That's when I work on it. And often I look up after an hour, I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't come up here to work on this. I came up to get these emails done and get this done and get this done. And so the list in my head is really defective and I got to work on it.
Hi, it's your girl, Yanique Dacosta, and you are listening to GuildCast. I am also easily distracted, very. And so it takes some effort for me to just be like, no list, right? But what I've done too is I have and I'm pretty sure you heard about this before, Ed. I have my time blocking timetable. So when I was little, my grandma used to have me make my timetable. Well, I guess we used to do it in school anyway. Camille, in Jamaica, you have a timetable, right?
Yeah.
Under my timetable would be what happens when I come home. So what time I shower, what time I eat, and then as I became an adult, I was like, I don't need to do that. I'm grown. I realized that is not the best approach to be successful. These things that they were teaching us when we were children, apparently they're lifelong lessons.
Value to it, yeah.
Go figure. Yeah. But I think a couple of things. I think it's helpful that I don't have anyone else to be responsible for. I don't have any children. I don't have a husband. I live by myself. So the only person who's responsible for me and my distraction is me. So that's one thing. But then the time blocking timetable, because, I do want to have a social life, right? And I do want to date someone because I do want to be married at some point. I share that with whomever so that they know what's going on, and they know hey, this is when we hang out. Let's make that work. And so if they were to call me at 10 a.m. and 10 a.m. is my check email, clear down the list time, I could say to them, I'm not answering because 10 a.m. is my
you already know
list time. And so
you're such a romantic.
Timetable just keep me accountable. So even though I have a list of things, not everything on the list is going to get done right now. It needs to fit into the slot so that it can be, we can do things effectively. So that works for me.
So
I think I'm still across. I think once again I'm a cross between you two. Where I think I'm more on Ed's side on this one. Where I kind of have a general running list of things I need to do, and I know when they need to get done by and what the deadlines are. And I feel sometimes I get nervous writing it down because it's so much stuff, and I'm I feel if I do this, I'm going to give myself anxiety to write this damn list.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's absolutely necessary because it's I'm going to forget something. So no, there are certain days where I'm I don't care how long the list is, I'm writing it down, and I'll take from the list for maybe a couple of days and shift them around and stuff based on the time frame. But writing down that list sometimes is oh no.
Yeah, no, sometimes you look at it and you're like right now, I'm pretty sure I have 7 pages worth of list. But I also acknowledge too that one page may really not even be that much, because what it will be, right? It's an overarching task, and then all the little things that have to get done for this overarching task to be complete. Because we forget about those things when you write the list, right? We're I have to go to the gym today, but we forgot that we had to wash our gym clothes because we had no gym clothes clean. Right. We forgot that we had to, make an appointment because it's COVID, so you can only go to the gym within certain times unless you make an appointment or something whatever it is. So there are all these things that we have to do that we don't give ourselves credit for doing, and then we just cross off this one thing. Went to the gym.
Yeah, that's true.
We need a lot more than just go to the gym.
Hello, this is Ed from Ed, Fred, and Ed, and you are listening to GuildCast. Well, with my kids at home doing homeschool, I get emails from their teachers with, here's a new schedule, and here's a new this, and we just did this today, and have them post this. And honestly, if I started a list, I'd start to cry because instead, what I do is I just mark the emails as unread. And then at night, I try to go through them and go, okay, what was I supposed to do? Because honestly, I would have a nervous breakdown if I put every little thing that I'm supposed to do on that list. So at least for now, that, making lists will destroy me. But I do see the merit in them. And once we get through this pandemic in 2023, then I think if I can remember that we even had this conversation, I will say, oh, I think I will start making lists and I'll start crossing things off. But I do here's a question. Do you find it important to have the list on paper? Does it matter if you put it on Google, in a Google Doc? Do you like the physical crossing off? Is that important? Or can you just do whatever works for you?
So in general, sure, whatever works for you works for you. Because if you're implementing a tool, the objective is to be productive or stay creative or to continue to move forward. For me, I've come to recognize that I'm a tactile person. So I like to write things down and I like to cross them off. Yeah, but in that same respect, I will have my grocery list is not going to be written down. My grocery list is going to be typed up. If I need to go shopping for something like my apartment, it's going to be a list of things probably on like Apple Notes or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for me, when it comes to going through tasks that for me can sometimes be tedious and some days pleasant and then some days super unpleasant, it's so much better for me to write it down and then cross it off. Because sometimes I cross it off like this. I don't even know if they can hear this. And then other days I'm just like a singular line. Other days I'm like,
don't live that forever. Okay, so then what else? What other I don't know if I was gonna say something a while ago, but what other methods do you guys have, if any other ones, for coping with COVID, whether from being stuck inside and your humanity or just, as a creative and getting creative work done?
Well, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead, Yanique.
I was going to say, I have a couple of things that I realized. When you asked me the question, I was like, gosh, I don't think I even shared that, right? So, ironically, sharing your story. And sometimes sharing your story could be a phone call or a social media post or a text message. That's really helpful for me, especially because I've kind of felt like I have been, especially more than hyper aggressive and hypersensitive to almost everything. So instead of bottling that up, I've just chosen to release it. And that's been very helpful. And in that same token, I have a thankful journal now. So when I wake up in the morning, I write down all the things I'm thankful for, because even though 2020 has been a really tumultuous year for the world and we're all going through these things simultaneously, personally and professionally, 2020 has been great for me. And so I've had to literally sit down and write that down so I don't forget in the moments where, I walk outside and my apartment's surrounded by the National Guard.
True.
I have an old friend who was having anxiety issues and other issues, and his shrink told him every day to write a gratitude list. So every day he pushes a gratitude list out on Facebook and welcomes people to comment. And it's wonderful to read what he's grateful for, because it reminds me what I'm grateful for and reminds his community to be grateful about certain things, because no matter who you are right now in anywhere in the world, there's a lot going on to be worried about. And what I was going to say was, we all have so many things that we're sharing in the U.S., in the world. We're talking about protests over racism. We're talking about the elections in the U.S., and we're talking about COVID. So there's so much that we have in common. So to take that and turn that into, I'm not sure if positive things is the right term, but things that so many people can identify with. So the minute we went into lockdown in March in the US, I created, what did I call it? I think I wrote it down over here. Tips for working from home. I knew people were going to be stuck at home, so I created tips for working from home, and it was like 4 cartoons. It was, don't do this, don't overeat, don't overcaffeinate, get dressed every day. And then it ended with a photo of myself going against absolutely every one of those rules. And then it said, do as I say, not as I do. And that could appeal to absolutely, for the first time, I think ever, could appeal to anyone in the world, because everyone was in lockdown, or almost everyone was in lockdown. I mean, when have we ever been in a situation like that? And that is inspiring. You can almost, you can identify some things that everyone can identify with. And that's a really great. Sorry. It's
kind of it's a really big unification factor worldwide, which is mad. Unique.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess even the takeaway from that, Ed, is for us to remember that we are not in it alone, even when we are alone. Mm-hmm. Reaching out and sharing and having conversations with friends or colleagues could definitely help to keep the juices flowing, keep the blood going.
Coming up on this episode of GuildCast.
Camille, just as you said, you started dating your notes. I date every page I do, because I love to look back, first of all, to see how much I've improved. So I can be like, oh my God, 10 years ago, that's how I drew hands. But also I write down ideas. And sometimes when I am just kind of ready, I'm ready for a new, to work on something new, and I don't have time to I don't want to now spend the next 5 days going, okay, what should that be? I'll go through some of my sketchbooks, and I'll just leaf through, and I'll see 3 years ago I came up with this idea for a comic.
Join the Graphic Artists Guild to listen to the full version of this episode at www.graphicartistsguild.org. Thanks for listening to GuildCast. Coming up in next week's episode.
So corporations they're a lot like Tinkerbell, right? If you don't believe in it, then nobody else has to either, and they will disappear. So if you do things like use your company credit card when you go buy groceries, or you use your personal credit card when you buy stuff for the company, or, you don't end up putting the company's name on your contract that you have with your clients, or, you just kind of, is it your alter ego? Then in that case, a lawyer can pierce the corporate veil, such a lovely phrase, pierce the corporate veil and reach through that entity and go after your personal assets.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild, and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.